Hi, Avant-Garde Prep students, and welcome to the leadership course lesson number 5. As you remember, we're now in the second level of our sphere of influence, where we're trying to better manage ourselves. Um, and today's lessons, personal leadership styles. So today we're going to kind of go through and better understand some different models and try to give you a better fundamental knowledge of leadership styles and with the purpose of today to understand those leadership styles and how you may better successfully uh, use those for your individual strengths and talents and understand the sort of situations in which they may be best used um, at. But to start off, what is leadership? I could teach a whole course on leadership. There are so many various topics that connect to leadership and better understanding it and talking about it. But as understanding today, the focus is on you and understanding how you can better serve as a leader and understanding and identifying situations in which calls for using this model or this style or such. So qualities and traits, however you may choose to describe it in a way, there's a laundry list of these things. You can go and Google, top qualities and traits of a leader, and you will get a number of different ones, and you'll get all sorts of opinions on what is most important. Today, that's not the focus or what I'm trying to emphasize by any means. I just picked a handful that I thought were somewhat important and could be various. Um, the the relevance of them could be dependent on the sort of task or the situation. Charisma. I would imagine the individual who's being a leader, serving as a leader, has some sort of charisma. Some people may have more of it. Some people may have less. Some people just ooze charisma in a sense, and you're just like, oh gosh, I want to run through a brick wall for that individual. Some people don't have as much, but maybe they show it through their commitment in which they have. You can see the sort of work that they're pouring in. They're maybe that lunch pail type of guy or girl or something. It's like day in, day out, they're doing things that demonstrate that they're committed to the cause, committed to the goal or the vision in which they're trying to achieve, and you're just like, I want to follow behind that person, and I want to help, to accomplish whatever that may be. Um, Leaders, you'll see that mostly I would imagine the better ones would be able to communicate and do so effectively. That could be in various ways. Maybe they're not a great orator of sorts. Maybe they're not great at large crowds. Maybe they're better in maybe individual one-on-one or small groups or something. Maybe they communicate well through their writing or something through that way. Or um, just the sort of things in which they do with the visual pictures or social media or something. So understanding how well you communicate and what sort of medium and form in which you do best can really help you in your leadership abilities. um, Vision, I would imagine that anybody who's trying to lead a group of individuals has to have some sort of vision, be able to think forward, whether it's in the near future, in the long term. You have to have an understanding of where you're wanting to take the ship in a way, and otherwise, it's like, what are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? And if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult for others to really buy into it. And the last one is courage or risk taker, where I would imagine, that once again, that the better leaders are individuals who aren't afraid to take on the challenge, who are not afraid to maybe go and do things that are a bit uncharted in a way, where other people have not necessarily done it, or um, are not afraid to put themselves out there and to be judged, because the higher in which you tend to climb in the scale of things, the more in which you're going to have people judging your decisions, your actions, your responses to things, and it can be quite critical at times. And you have to be the sort of individual who's willing to take that on, take that risk, and have the courage to do that. So, excuse me. So, give you a second. Everyone know who this is? All right. Steve Jobs, Apple, former CEO. He started this company back in the 80s and everything. Really innovated the personal computer, the PC, which everyone had, and then eventually got fired. But he was brought back at some point, and once again reinvented technology and really shaped um, how people today communicate with one another. So I would imagine by anyone who considers whatever standards they may have of what a great leader is, that Steve Jobs would be someone that everyone would feel confident in saying, yeah, he was a great leader. Now, this next person in the picture, anybody know who this is? Give you a moment. Maybe you want to go Google it. So, all right. Well, it's Vladimir Putin of Russia. He is the president of Russia, and he's kind of been in the news lately. Not for all the right reasons either. If you were watching anything like CNN, Fox News, maybe reading your local newspaper or something, you know that Russia just took over a part of Ukraine, the Crimea. And he was a former KGB agent, so as you can imagine, probably a little more abrasive, a little bit more of authoritarian, a little bit more kind of macho in a way in which he tries to lead and such. And he's probably, like I said, he's the opposite of what a Steve Jobs would be. But, you know, are both of these individuals great leaders? And that's the question to ask. I would think that regardless of what you identify are good qualities in a way, or good traits that one have, I would think that both of them have exceptional characteristics of them that make them great leaders. It just depends on your opinion or what you choose to agree with, or you may not agree with, but still. So you can see both of them are different leadership styles. Steve Jobs, very innovative. He revolutionized the cell phone industry. Putin, on the other hand, is very structured, and in the way in which he carries things out, very militaristic in a way. But once again, for the situations he's probably in, what he calls for and what's needed, it's the structured environment is what you probably need to in that sort of area. Steve Jobs, democratic. Putin, more authoritarian. Jobs, collaborative. Sort of, involving more individuals in the decision-making process and where it's going and things. Where Putin and being quite isolated in a sense. Russia is probably not a lot of friends, or does not have or not making any new friends, I guess I could say that. But they are kind of isolating themselves against the world and that nature because of the actions in which they're taking, and they're okay with that. People of Russia are okay with that. So once again, sort of leadership styles and the various ones can be used for different situations. So going here, I'm going to go back to Lewin's leadership styles in 1939. So that was a long, long time ago, as you can see. And this was the very beginning of when leadership was discussed, and people were trying to really kind of make this of a science of somewhat, and begin developing some terminology that was associated with it and everything. So you have autocratic, these individuals make their own decisions, really don't seek the input of others, and take it into their own hands of deciding what's going to be done, how it's going to be done, and telling those others this is what's needed of them in a way. Sometimes this is needed. You may be in a situation of a crisis or emergency, and you really don't have the opportunity to go around gathering the opinions in everyone of like, oh, do we do this, do we do that, and such, where time is of the essence, and that you need someone to make a decision and that it's carried out in a way. Democratic, decisions made collaboratively, so you're going through, maybe you've got representatives, of just like we have representatives for different areas of the state, we've got Senate and everything, and they come forward and they hear the the concerns of their citizens and they bring them forth and then they cast their votes and such. So that's kind of how more of a democratic leadership style is ran, where you're hearing the issues, but the individual on top, or the head, the authoritative figure at that moment, may either could very well seek and receive that input and still make their own decision, in which they believe is best, for the organization, or it could be a democratic voting style where the vote carries a weight on what's being done. The laissez-faire style is kind of the opposites. In a way, you've probably got an authority figure who is one weak or incompetent, or they just don't have much of an invested interest on what's going on, in a way, and they're just going like, hey, you know what? I'm going to let you do what you need to do. I'm not going to stand in your way. I'll just rubber stamp whatever you need me to. You decide on what you want to do. And you know what? And I'm not really going to follow up or check and see how you're doing. So, so you have one very extreme style, which is very authoritarian, militaristic, and possibly very top-down chain of command structure, to a laissez-faire where they've just kind of washed their hands of the situation and just allow things to happen. So, and anywhere between and such, I mean, you may come across situations where that is needed for that particular moment. It's probably best in a way you seem more balanced and stay in the middle, knowing that you may have to venture out to the extreme somewhat at times, but you don't want to be where you're stuck. I'm going to do it like this all the time because this is the way in which I know, and I'm not going to deviate from this at all. The better leaders will be able to adapt to each individual situation and know how to respond to them appropriately. Okay, and this is what you'll see. This is a more modern style of leadership, situational leadership, and I've chosen on this scale, this XY axis, in which you see, where you have one that measures the capability and the skill of the individual or a group of individuals, or you've got their commitment and will to it, to the task or the goal or whatever is being asked of them at that moment and such. And you'll see some other models that vary slightly and deviate from this a little bit, but this will give you the overall gist and give you more options on how to respond to certain situations, and where you can be more adaptable and try to sculpt the sort of response that's needed. So starting from the bottom left, you have the direct role, where you have someone of low skill, low commitment. You can think of these individuals who don't have many professional skills or whatnot, or don't really have much concern as to the overall well-being of an organization or the long-term health of an organization. They're just kind of there. Oh, I'm here to get my paycheck, this and that. At 5 o'clock, I'm done. I'm out. Those sort of people, or they're just doing what is needed enough to get by. So as you can see, you really got to be very hands-on, very involved with these sort of individuals, and making sure that the results are being accomplished through your oversight and your supervision. So you're going to have to be very clear with these sort of expectations and these steps that are needed to execute the sort of task in which you have them doing. Most likely they're not going to bring questions to you. One, because they don't have the depth and the knowledge to do so. They just don't know what questions to ask. Two, they may not care. But so you may have to bring questions to them to better understand how things are progressing along, and making sure things are meeting the expectations that are set out before them. The next one is the support. If you're moving up a little bit in the quadrant, where you've got someone whose skill level is higher in a way, or extremely high, so they possess um, a lot more a lot of professional skills, but maybe they're just, like I said, they're not buying into it or something, or maybe they're more, as you see here, they're more about the relationship more so than about the task and what's being done. So, and you can see that there's going to be situations and times where salvaging the relationship in which you have with the employees or with the constituents that you have outside is more important in a way, and than the overall task in itself. So there might be some flexibility as to how well something is met. Uh, but here is the key word is support, in a way in which you're giving it to them, and you're providing them with some moderate supervision over the task in a way. Now moving over here to the engage, you can see where you're engaging the individuals and such. Here you're building relationship and tasks together with them. So they have a high commitment, high will to do well. They're invested into this organization. They truly care about the overall well-being of it in a way. But their skill level may not necessarily be as well. So as you see this, another key word is coaching and guidance. So you're really bringing these along, you're mentoring them, you're providing them with the sort of information to keep them going in a sense, and you're allowing them to be invested into it, because you're probably asking them for their input, for some of their advice, asking them what their opinions are of certain things, and you're just doing that, and by doing that, they're becoming more emotionally invested into the task, the project, and such. And then lastly, you got to delegate. This is a skill in itself for leaders. There's people in which I still work with to this day who feel like they have to be completely involved in the task at hand, and are afraid to delegate tasks and allowing others to to carry it out. So this may be someone who's extremely or those would be individuals who are extremely hands-on and don't know when to allow others to operate with some degree of freedom. But anyways, delegate. So you're working with excuse me, high individual who has a ton of professional skills in a way, and then and as well as they're committed to the organization, the health of the organization. So you more than anything, which I tend to call it, is that I'm going to paint in the broad strokes of this picture. I'm going to do the outline. I'm going to give you the parameters. Here are the borders. These are the overall expectations. I need you to make it happen. So you're giving the individuals the freedom and the flexibility to go out, to use their own ideas, to use their skills in a way to carry out a task, and to use their professional judgment in doing so. So there's these 4 different ones. You've got direct, support, engage, delegate. But knowing the sort of situations in which you may come into, it's better understanding, okay, which one, who am I working with more so at this very moment? Who am I working with? How committed are they to this? What sort of skills do they bring to the table for this sort of task and things? And what sort of involvement, keyword is involvement, in which is going to be needed of me to help them get through this task. So you can kind of ask yourself those questions, and then you can decide, oh, maybe, you know what, the engage one may be more appropriate this time, or the support one may be more appropriate. But this should hopefully give you a bit more a fundamental knowledge of the different types of situations, and the sort of response and actions that you should have to support that particular scenario. And as I mentioned, I would study these. Definitely study these. Come to class and understanding them, and because we're going to have some exercises and scenarios where you're specifically going to be asked, which one do you think is more appropriate, and how you will address it with your individual strengths and make sure that it's carried out effectively. So with that said, we're going to move forward to strengths and leadership. And you know that I always kind of tie in the presentations with strengths. I feel that strengths and leadership go hand in hand. And one of the beautiful things about strengths is the sort of labeling in which it gives you. So, identifying your strengths and everything, and being able to stand and identify it, point it out, and then being able to work on it and developing that skill set. And here we have 4 domains. Now, I haven't given you the domains up until this point, and I felt that was important. I really wanted you to concentrate these past, the previous lessons of understanding your individual strengths and how you identify with them. And now there's 4 different domains in which you can further break them up. There's 5 strengths, 4 domains. Mine are pretty evenly split, where I have 1 in each, except for executing, I have 2 in. And that's honestly, if I look at these 4, I'd be like, yep, that's where my strengths typically lie out. To when I'm asked to lead certain groups, or I'm put in positions to carry things out. My best bet is, okay, when you get stuff done, let's make it happen in a way. And I'm usually good at seeing to it that the results are met in a way. Now, some of you may be better at influencing. Maybe some of you are really good at the relationship building, the people element side of things. Some people may be more kind of the strategic thinker, where they're kind of helping to develop the plans and the ideas, but they may not be the sort of individual who can help to get it off the ground running and executing this task. Or maybe they're not the individual who can really get people to buy in to the sort of plans or goals and things, and they need to bring someone in to help them and who agrees along with what they're trying to do and to get others to do it. Or maybe they're not the individual who needs to build support through the community or other various agencies or groups and such, and they've got someone who they can bring in who's really good at that people element. So I hope you're beginning to see the beauty of strengths and understanding where your strengths lie at and how you can necessarily use them to effectively work through any sort of situation in the most ideal way where you will achieve the sort of results that you want to achieve. So the sort of ideal skills, what do you have? What do you do well? How can you use them? The sort of ideal situations, thinking about where do I fit best at? What sort of situations have risen within the last year that suits me the best, where I can be the most effective in a group environment. And then by understanding these sort of things and understanding your strengths, understanding these domains, understanding the skills and situations which you have, that you're developing confidence and that you can repeatedly do things at a very high level and that you can be counted on to execute them and be someone who's looked favorably in the eyes of others in a way that you're accomplishing the sort of things in which you want to accomplish personally, but not just personally, but accomplishing things within the sort of groups in which you're a part of. So once again, study this diagram too, just as well, because in the exercises and scenarios in which we'll have, you'll be asked to really identify these and how you're going to utilize your strengths to carry out the sort of leadership style that you must present at that time. So lastly, as I mentioned, I always have as a quote to finish off the presentation, and today's quote is from Bruce Lee. Not sure if any of you are into Kung Fu, but if you are, I'm sure you know who Bruce Lee was. He was a Kung Fu artist back in the 70s, and made lots of movies and such and everything, I guess in a time when Kung Fu was really big. Not that I'm a big fan of him, I just thought this quote was good and perfect for this opportunity. So adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. So I thought this was really relevant in a sense because I feel as individuals we must be really adaptive in a way, that we must be able to see what's going on, what other people are doing, and to adapt those sort of parts that we feel like that will help us. And then reject what is useless. What are things that you're not doing well? What are the people and the stuff in which you're putting yourself into contact with that aren't really contributing to your productivity in a way, and is not enhancing you as an individual? And reject may be a bit harsh, but you choose as a person how to allocate your time and how that time is being spent and what that time is doing to you, to further enhance your abilities, your goals, and you know, and helping you to achieve the things in which you wish and desire to achieve. And then lastly, and add what is specifically your own. So, you know, taking all these sort of ideas and adopting them in a way and bringing them into, um, you know, to yourself and making them work for you. And that's what's most important in a way. So thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed this lecture. I, you know, next class I believe is going to be extremely exciting, where we start really getting into the scenarios and the exercises, and better understanding yourself and how you're going to respond to these individual situations. So thanks again, and have a good day.